Hello and welcome back to another Rush Duel Links deck profile. Today we're taking a look at Shock Magician, which is basically Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl combined with Shock Dragon. Now the synergy here is that Shock Dragon has quite a unique effect, which is we can send the top card of our deck to the graveyard. At the end of this turn, all face-up monsters with the highest attack on your opponent's field lose attack equal to the attack of the face-up monster with the highest attack on your field. This card can only attack position monsters this turn. So what this means is the higher attack monster we get out, the more we can weaken our opponent's monsters. And because of the Dark Magician Girl's effect, where it can easily gain that 500 attack, basically we can always have a 2500 attack, one tribute monster on the field, and then weaken our opponent's monsters by 2500. Now, if they have multiple monsters with the same attack, which would usually only come up against something like Harpies, we can reduce all of those monsters by that 25 and basically put them down to 0 attack, which is actually pretty good, as well as the fact this guy has 2500 defense, which, although it was a lot better in the physical release of the game because we didn't have the skills, is still pretty good. The issue being that in Duel Links there are a lot of skills that can just boost you over that 2500 and attack over it, so it does feel a little bit weaker. But I guess we'll take a look at the skill. This is Magician Shuffle, and this is one of the very first skills introduced to the game. So the only requirement here is that all monsters with 2500 or more attack on our deck have to be spellcasters. That basically just means we can't play Dragius. Now there is obviously a few other cards we can't play as well, but for the most part this is the please don't play Dragius. On turn 2 onwards we can reveal one Dark Attribute spellcaster monster with 1700 or more defense in our hand to our opponents. That's basically saying it has to be either Dark Magician Girl or Dark Magician. Add a Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl from the deck to your hand, and send one Dark Attribute spellcaster type monster with 1700 or more defense from your hand to the graveyard. So primarily we're going to be using this to reveal a Dark Magician Girl and then send Dark Magician to graveyard, or reveal Dark Magician, grab a Dark Magician Girl from our deck, and then also send Dark Magician to the graveyard. That basically sets up Dark Magician Girl to be a lot more powerful. But that is basically the main combo of the deck. We just want to get our Dark Magician Girl online, have a 2500 attack, have easy access to one tribute 2500 attack monsters, weaken our opponents with Shock Dragon, and that's kind of all the deck really does. And that in itself is fine. Being able to weaken your opponent's monsters by 2500 attack is actually pretty good. If we can use it on more than one monster, that's actually fantastic. If we're able to summon 2 Shock Dragons in one turn for whatever reason, we could even do that multiple times and reduce different monsters' attack down to 0, which can be very, very strong. And just having multiple 2500 attack monsters is also not bad. We are playing Essel in this deck, and the reason we are on Essel is because although we can't gain the amount of pressure that we would get if we were to bring back something like a Dragius, which obviously we do not have in this deck, being able to bring back a 2500 body or a 2500 body or a 2500 body in the Dark Magician is very good. And if we do go second and we do open a Dark Magician Girl or Dark Magician and Essel, we can guarantee that we get a Dark Magician or a Dark Magician Girl straight onto our field, because we can just send it to the graveyard with the skill and then it is there ready to be brought back with Essel. But also bringing back a defense position Shock Dragon is also pretty good on turn 2. Then we have Seraph of Darkness. Now this card I think it's one of the better supports that we had for Dark Magician before Shock Dragon came out. And this card is actually pretty good. If we have a face-up level 5 or higher Dark Attribute monster on the field, pay 500 life points, so not discarding a card, very, very important. Change one face-up level 8 or lower monster on your opponent's field to face-up attack position or face-down defense position. Now notably, we cannot change our opponent's face-down defense position monsters to face-up attack, which is obviously would be incredible. That would basically fix this deck's major weakness, but we'll come back to that in a minute. This lets us basically change monsters to defense. It's sort of like having Dark Arts of Celerity or using the Thunder skill to just change monsters from attack to defense and then attack over them, which is pretty good. Also, if they do have face-up defense monsters for whatever reason, we can force them into attack and get to our opponent's life points, which can be very, very good. Seraph of Darkness is a decent card. It does plug up a couple of the deck's weaknesses, but it doesn't completely get rid of them. Then we're on Speedy Performer, and Speedy Performer is in here because we just wanted more ways to deal with 2500 crashing. We found a lot in testing, our opponent would summon a 2500 attack monster and we just wouldn't have an out to it. We just wouldn't have access to, let's say, a Seraph of Darkness or a Shock Dragon or a Silver Wolf. So just having an extra card that lets you do that can be very, very good, as well as the fact it fills the graveyard, just like Essel does, which can be good for fulfilling requirements for effects such as Paku Pakuchu or using the Talismanic Seal Array, so can be very, very good for those reasons. Then we're on 3 Silver Wolf, 3 Paku Pakuchu, and 3 Gazelle, and this is our Beast package. It's quite a slim Beast package, usually you'd see a few more cards in this, but basically we just wanted a way to have big-ish monsters, and Gazelle was obviously a 1500 vanilla. We have the 1300 in Silverwolf, as well as have a way to plus. So you could theoretically just replace this with an Aqua engine, but the Beast engine feels a little bit more robust, and the Silverwolf really helps with dealing with those 2500 crashes. So that's why we've gone for the Beast engine specifically. And then there's the Dark Magician. I mean, he has to be in here because the deck doesn't work without him. Then we go on to our spells. We have the Shield and Sword. Shield and Sword is actually not too bad in here. A lot of our monsters have pretty decent defense. Dark Magician has 21, our Dark Magician Girl has 17, and Shock Dragon has 25. There's been several opportunities where we've been able to summon out a Shock Dragon, activate its effect, then drop Shield and Sword. Our Shock Dragon goes up to 2500 attack, our opponent's monster is on 0, then we just get to attack over them and completely wipe them out. Shield and Sword, again, does just steal games, and this deck makes very, very good use of it. Then we have Talismanic Seal Array. So this is a bit of a weird one because a lot of the time you feel like you don't really need Talismanic Seal Array because we do have Shock Dragon. However, Talismanic Seal Array does let us recycle a lot of our cards, and being able to reduce your opponent's monster's attack is still very, very good in a lot of situations. Also gives us a very easy out to maximums. Although it feels like it might not be required, it's still very, very good in here. But I really recommend this card. I'm playing it at 2 copies at the moment. We were originally playing Dark Magic Attack in here, and we were playing like a 1-on-1 split. But Dark Magic Attack, although can be really good and can be a very strong blowout card, and we did test quite a lot with this card, in a lot of games, it felt like a brick. And unfortunately, that's just how it's going to be. We do have the easiest access to Dark Magician we'll ever get by using our skill. But even with that, we still need to find a Dark Magician Girl to be able to get Dark Magician out of the graveyard in order to actually use the Dark Magic Attack. So it still oftentimes did just feel like a brick. Then for our traps, we're on Sword and Shield. Again, this deck does have quite high defense value, so it does make very good use of Sword and Shield, as well as the fact a lot of other decks have 0 defense right now, so it really does punish a lot of those decks. And recycling Shield and Sword is absolutely fantastic. We shouldn't have to mention Widespread Ruin, this card's just great. Then we're on Call of the Earthbound. So we went for Call of the Earthbound specifically because we wanted a way to just not randomly lose to Magnum Overlord. This deck does have an exceptionally bad matchup into that, but if we can land our Call of the Earthbound to stop the Magnum Overlord's attack, that in itself is very, very good, and we can then crack back with a TSA play or a Shock Dragon play to try and end the game that way, so that's why we're on that. This could also be King's Majesty, but we couldn't really squeeze in a King's Majesty and the 3 normal monsters to go with it. We had to take out a lot of other things. We did try it a little bit by taking out Seraph of Darkness and 2 Speedy Performers, but then we kept running into the issue where we kept hitting these 2500 v 2500 crashes, and we really didn't want to be trading our monsters away. That's why we've gone for Call of the Earthbound. And then finally, Music Princess Recital, because again, this deck can just get out aggroed, and in those situations, we just need to slow the game down a little bit so that we can recoup. Just again, getting out a Shock Dragon and a Dark Magician Girl is relatively simple. Obviously, a lot of the time we'll be using our Paku Pikachu to do that, but getting this little combo off is simple enough, and we can just end games off of it. So this is the deck. All in all, this deck is kind of fine. It's not great. It's not overpowered. It's not, I don't even think I'd even say it's competitive, but it is a bit of fun. The major issue this deck has is that we don't really have a good way to beat set 3 pass. We don't have any piercing. We don't have any multi-attack. We don't have any way to pop face down monsters, which does mean if our opponent just stalls us out, we don't really have a good way to deal with that. And we do not have any kind of secondary win condition, right? We can't burn our opponent out. We're not particularly good at decking our opponent out, outside of exactly just recycling cards with Talismanic Seal Array. So if our opponent just go on the defensive, there's not really a ton we can do. And Magnum Overlord especially will a lot of the time just stall out until they draw out the max. And a lot of the time we're set like, well, we can't actually do anything. We just have to kind of wait until they summon their max, which is why, again, we have Call of the Earthbound in here, because if we do manage to Call of the Earthbound their maximum attack onto a defense mode monster, we do usually just kind of win the game from that point. So all in all, I would say this deck has very bad matchups into anything that can stall them out. And that's primarily going to be something like Royal Rebels. I think Noodles are going to have a very strong matchup into this. I think Magnum Overlord is going to have a very strong matchup into this. Most other decks, though, we're kind of okay against. We weren't expecting to do as well on this deck as we actually did. We did have a couple of really big loss streaks, but we also had quite a few decent win streaks on this list, which is something I wasn't really expecting. We were going in expecting this to be a bit of a meme list, and it was okay. Again, I would not recommend you take this to a tournament. I do not think this is going to, get you massive win streaks. I think you could cog on this deck, but it would be a little bit of a struggle. I think the deck is okay. I think that is the best definition for this deck. It's nothing great, but it's fine. It does what it needs to do. And There are a couple of other techs that we were testing in here. We were testing out Torna the Windweaver, but then we felt we had too many bricks, which is why, again, we cut down our Shock Dragons from 3 down to 2, and then made room for the Call of the Earthbound. Torna did help alleviate the we can't beat set 3 pass problem, but it just ended up giving us lots of bricky hands, because we can't take out the Shock Dragons, we can't take out the Dark Magician, and we can't take out the Dark Magician Girl, because then the deck just doesn't work. So that was one issue. We also did talk about using Piercing Samurai. In one of our replays that we had against Manicus, we actually did a reverse game where I think I was playing Noodles and he was playing this deck with Piercing Samurai, and you can see him using it there. Piercing Samurai is a decent card, but it's, again, just going to be the 1200 piercing. You just kind of hope your opponent has 0 defense monsters, and then you can get a little bit of damage in every now and then. I didn't think it worked super well in here, but that is another option. And obviously we would be playing Buffered Slime, but we haven't bought the bundle yet, so that is another thing. It's one of the best trap cards in the game. You should be running this just about everything, but we don't have the bundle yet because we're waiting for the next box. So again, this is the deck. It's fine. It's okay. If you want to have a bit of fun with Dark Magician, this is probably the best way to play it. So now let's fire on some replays so I can show you what I've been talking about.
Yes, you did it!